I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Donald Trump dropping nuke bombs in the Oval Office. This kind of reminds me of the Zelensky situation, but the South African president came to the White House and Trump decided to just confront him about the discrimination towards white people and white farmers in his country. And they had something on screen and he's throwing around pictures saying death. And it's just fearless in your face kind of activity that people love and voted for him for this. Also want to talk about some more stuff about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. And there's a clip of them promoting their book that's now out about Hunter Biden basically being the driving force behind the Biden family, which isn't really news, but it's interesting. Their narratives about, it's a problem because Hunter Biden is a sleazy, disgusting character, when they didn't have such harsh words, when Biden was president. When there was nothing to lose. Like we had a long conversation. Oh, hold on. Let me finish my intro before I get distracted. And I also want to touch on Charlie Kirk, a debate he had at Cambridge. And so I want to look at this one section that he had back and forth with someone. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Because it does cost to stream and run my site, all that stuff. So you guys can support it very much. Appreciate you guys. You guys can check out different merch that I have at the store, different mugs and t-shirts and so on at the store. So go ahead and pick some of that stuff up at the store. You guys can also check out my different books that I have available. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, there's a link that'll take you to like an Amazon page with my books and stuff on it. But at the website, there's a banner at the top that'll take you to my book website, which is Ninja Dust Publishing, where you guys can just learn more. So I have 2 nonfiction books and the rest are fiction. And I do have most of my books on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have that plan with Kindle, you guys can just read through it, and I'll get the money, so as long as you read through it. So first things first, I want to go ahead and let me start with the Hunter Biden situation. So Jake Tapper has been going around promoting his book. We watched a clip with him and Megyn Kelly the other day, and it's just really annoying. She confronted him about the Laura Trump interview that he had, when he confronted her saying, "Oh, well, you're making fun of his stutter. You're making fun of his stutter." And she's like, "No, I'm making fun of his not making fun. I'm pointing out his mental decline." And he just wouldn't accept it. And he berated her and was like, "You're making fun of his stutter. What are kids supposed to think who have a stutter?" And blah, blah, blah. So he admitted that he had privately apologized to her. And I said, that's not really good enough. The problem with Jake Tapper and other journalists who are now sounding the alarm and having conversations about all this stuff is that there's no risk right now to being honest. There's no risk. It's early enough that if they blow the lid off all this stuff with the Democrats and the role that people played in it, that it's probably not going to have a serious electoral blowback. So much happens between now and a midterm. It's early enough that there's no risk there. Obviously, there's not an election right now. Like, what if they had just did some journalism before, and the more they're digging, the more they found out that there were issues with Biden and his, mental faculties, and there was just other episodes and other things I think he said as early as 2015 when he talked to Megyn Kelly the other day. So there are things that people saw and have seen, and now they're more willing to open up after the election, but they had convinced themselves that they had to do something because Biden was the only one who could stop Trump. I don't even believe that. I think they had better options if Trump could be stopped. But that was what they, said. But the question is, how could they be so immoral to still rationalize themselves into that position, to still go forward in such a way that was so dishonest to the American people, so unfair to the American people? And Jake Tapper was a part of it. Like, am I saying he was like as willfully ignorant or malicious, I guess is a better word, as the people in Biden's circle who were keeping things hush hush? Maybe not, but that clip with Laura Trump was so disgusting. It was so disgusting. So there's another clip that's out with him talking about Hunter Biden, and he had some choice words about Hunter Biden. So I want to play for you guys that clip, and then I want to play for you guys a comparison clip that someone put together of some things that he said before when it came to sticking up for Hunter Biden. And it's just really amazing. It's really amazing.
How big a factor was the Hunter stuff?
I think it was considerable. I think Hunter was driving the decision making for the family in a way that he was almost like a chief of staff of the family.
Does that strike you as pretty bizarre?
It's bizarre because I think he is provably, demonstrably unethical, sleazy, and prone to horrible decisions. I mean,
tell me how you really feel.
Well, I mean, I just look at the record. I mean, after his brother died, he cheated on his wife with his brother's widow and then got her addicted to crack. That's just one thing I could say. I mean, I don't have a lot of personal regard for him, and just based on having nothing to do with, I barely have ever met him. I've met him like once or twice, but I knew Bo. Bo was a great, upstanding guy.
I knew him too. Really,
a real loss for the country too, not just for his family, for the country. But Hunter is not that, and the idea of letting him drive the family car, as it were, is just really, really questionable.
Really, really, really questionable. Now, the things that he said about Hunter Biden were things that are known. Like I've read different reports of like Hunter being in Biden's ear and driving stuff, and Biden would say things like, "Hunter's the smartest guy I know." It's like, well, that's troubling. If you believe that, Hunter was with him on planes going different places, and there's a scandal with the the oil and gas company that he was associated with, and you could see him lying about the business dealings and all kinds of different stuff, and they were obviously intertwined in that sort of way, and people were trying to cover for it all the time, so we've had lots of conversations about Hunter and Joe, and the media tried to seem like, it's Hunter's not president though. Okay, but he has his dad's ear. He has his dad's ear, and he's a shady, terrible figure. Like if Don Jr. had the reputation that Hunter had, and he was the driving force in so many of Trump's decisions, like people would be pulling their hair out. They'd be saying this is a constitutional. They'd be saying all kinds of crazy things, threat to democracy, blah 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 blah. They just think it would be so disgusting and so troubling. And now Jake Tapper can say that, it's a terrible thing that he was a driving factor in so many of these things because he is such a low character, low class person. But this isn't new commentary to the right. It's not. I'm not saying that people on the left wouldn't rarely talk about the terrible things, but how many conversations, guys, can you remember of them talking about Hunter and him being prosecuted? Like, they're just picking on poor Hunter. They're only going after him because he's the president's son, even though he had a sweetheart deal that they tried to basically get him off on all the crap that he had done, and it just blew up kind of last second. So they were trying to, get him along without any sort of pass. It just didn't work out for them. But they had him dead to rights on that gun charge and other stuff. So but he's just a despicable character, getting with his brother's widow, like getting her addicted to drugs. You know, having that lying on the ATF form to get that firearm, her being afraid of him having it and throwing it away, like near a school. You know, there's all kinds of shady things. There was even like old stories about Biden kind of trying to cover for Hunter and, you know, to keep him out of trouble. So all that stuff on top of the Burisma stuff, there's just so many things that were problematic, but they wanted to ignore it. They wanted to look the other way. Even them mentioning Bo, by the way, they covered or minimized up his cancer too, which I remember mentioning it in the show like sometime last year and reading articles. I'm like, they lied about his condition basically up until the moment that he was about to pass. And I guess that's covered in the book too. I was reading some snippets online where people were talking about it. So when they're talking about Joe Biden's cancer and like, oh, well, we just found out about this on Friday. They covered up Bo's cancer too. Like he was still like about to run stuff for a position in office and stuff. So they it's just what they do. It's just what they do. So anyway, you guys saw the language that Jake Tapper had for Hunter. And it's nothing new. You guys have heard me say, you guys have heard other people on the right talk about Hunter. This is really a trashy family. Like people talk, Joe Biden is such a nice guy. Do nice guys ignore the existence of their grandchildren? That's another thing. Hunter Biden, his child that, you know, he was trying to ignore, and then they had to go to court for child support payments. And they're like, well, I can pay you in some paintings. And gosh, there's just so many things that were leaked on his laptop. And it's just a really trashy family. So here's Jake Tapper, an example of him talking about Hunter Biden a bit to what you see today.
There's no evidence to support the allegation my father was financially involved in my business because it did not happen. There's no fairness or decency in what these Republicans are doing. And I do have to say, whatever you think of Hunter Biden, and there's certainly a lot of people in this town, Democrats and Republicans, that do not think a lot of him, there is a certain kind of like cruelty to the campaign against him. Where is Hunter? Where is Hunter? Where is Hunter?
Hunter was driving the decision making for the family in a way that he was almost like a chief of staff of the family.
Does that strike you as pretty bizarre?
It's bizarre because I think he is provably, demonstrably unethical, sleazy, and prone to horrible decisions. I mean,
tell me how you really feel.
Well, I mean, I just look at the record. I mean, after his brother died, he cheated on his wife with his brother's widow and then got her addicted to crack. That's just one thing I could say. I mean, I don't have a lot of personal regard for him.
There's no evidence.
Oh, it's so mean. Where's Hunter? Wasn't okay. Whatever. They were two peas in a pod. Joe and Hunter. They were two peas in a pod. Whether it came from White House stuff and Hunter's business dealings, his corrupt business dealings, and then the cherry on the flipping top, the fact that he got that crazy blanket pardon. What was it, for 11 years, something like that, for any sort of federal crime that he might have committed. That was so insane. That was so insane. And I wasn't surprised though. I was not surprised. And he said that he wouldn't do it. Obviously, he lied. Obviously, he was always going to do it unless he could find a way to get his son like out of trouble in all sorts of kind of ways. But, you know, push comes to shove, he had to do it last minute. And then they did a bunch of other blanket pardons and whatever. Which of course opened up the door for Trump to just be like blanket pardon for the January 6 people. I think if Biden hadn't done a bunch of pardons at the last second, the Trump folks probably would have been more selective about the January 6 pardons. But I think they just felt like, we're not doing all this work. We're just doing blanket pardons. We're just doing blanket ones. Oh yeah, are you serious? He got his brother's wife addicted to crack. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He got with his brother's widow and got her addicted to crack. Yep, sure did. Sure did. And there's more. There's more. Like Ashley Biden's diary about her taking creepy showers with her dad. That was a story that was so bizarre. Like I saw people on the right beginning to talk about it, and I'm like, this is too like on the nose, like Biden being, weird with kids and sniffing them. Like this story is too on the nose for it to be real. Was kind of my, like, I didn't totally doubt it, but I'm like, I'm not reporting about this. I'm not talking about this until I find out more information. And then because someone like had the diary and they were trying to get it to Project Veritas, and Project Veritas, I don't know, they didn't all the way like verify it in the way that they wanted to or whatever. And then they got raided. And so after James O'Keefe got raided to get this diary, I'm like, wait a second, this must be true. This must be real. And so, and then of course the woman who had it, she ended up getting prosecuted for it. And they didn't dispute what was in it or said it was tampered with or whatever. She got in trouble for like having it. So I'm like, I would have left that alone. I would have tried to leave that in Rumorville, like deny it, like they denied the laptop or whatever. That's weird. This family is insane. This family is insane. It's one of the trashiest families like that there is. And it's something that you would think would live in the depths of like some reality backwoods thing, but they're like, we're talking about a former president. We're talking about a former freaking president. And I know there's presidents who are shady, who've done shady, like Bill Clinton, for example. Kennedy, we can name some shady presidents who've done shady, questionable things, but creepy showers with your daughter, lying, like covering your son's cancer, or the family doing it, or them keeping hush hush. Having your crackhead son basically be the driving force for a lot of your decisions and so on, which whether he was going to drop out or not, there were reports that Hunter was really driving that, talking about it, and he probably didn't want his dad to drop out, and Biden probably didn't want to be forced out either, and neither did Jill, and they certainly don't like Kamala and stuff or whatever either. You're unclear. Abel says he's unclear why they bothered to break the cancer news at all. The theory is that they broke the news. Well, according to them, they just found out on Friday. Nobody believes that. Some people are trying to spin that, but nobody believes that. That is prostate cancer metastasized in his bones, and he just found that on Friday, and there were no like PSA reports in his physicals, even though it was in Trump's and Obama's, and just nobody believes that. Nobody believes that. I think they decided to bring that up to garner sympathy for Biden, so people would be talking about that and saying, oh, let's give him some time, let's give him some sympathy, so we wouldn't all be having conversations about the decline, his mental decline, and any sort of shady things that might have been happening while he was president. I think that's why they're trying to pull a sympathy card with cancer. The timing is really suspect, because I do not believe they just found this out on Friday. I don't. And I guess that's supposed to be the new conspiracy, but you know what? We're like batting 1,000. We're like batting 1,000 right now with all the things they said weren't true. Like, oh, it's cheap fakes and there's nothing wrong with Biden. Whatever. We seem to continuously be right about all this stuff. So anyway, I'm glad that there's things coming out. Of course, there's a lot, all the sorts of details that are in his book. I'm sure there's things that specifically we don't know or we didn't know. They got a lot of sources for their book or whatever. There's general things that we knew and that we observed. Like Megyn Kelly was like, I have sources in the White House and connections now. I didn't have any really with the last administration, but you had sources and connections that I didn't have. And yet I could see, I knew without needing to talk to people. A lot of people could just observe and know without needing to talk to people. And you had direct sources. Like maybe they wouldn't talk to you about all this kinds of stuff, but you could just open your eyes and see, but they didn't want to see. And I don't think that we should just forgive these folks just because they're like, yeah, I'm humble now. And I'm, it's a humiliating time and we have to, look at ourselves and blah, blah, blah. I need more than that because again, it's really easy to come out with the books and get all this money, making your sales. It's really easy to say that you apologize to Laura Trump in private. It's really easy to do those things. There's nothing really to lose at this point. The Bidens are all washed up. He's like literally like a foot out the door. He has no political future. And he may not have much of a future conscious existence either. There's no downside to them exposing all of this now. There's only upside in dollar bills. So you're not a hero. I don't think you're at this point a very good journalist. You act as opposition against the Republicans. And now you're going on Megyn Kelly and some other places because you want some of these folks to read your book too, to buy your book too. And I'm sure there's plenty of people on the right who have. I'm mildly curious. I don't know if I will or I won't. But go ahead and get it. I'll probably still talk about it a bit, but I don't know about giving him my dollars. I have to think about it, guys. But you're no hero. And we just shouldn't forgive these folks. And keep in mind that Tapper was also CNN and Tapper that they recently lost a defamation lawsuit because they were trying to smear a guy who was getting people out of Afghanistan during the collapse. They were trying to say that he was doing like a black market escape for people and raising all this money, taking advantage of people, and there are people on CNN saying like, oh, we're going to nail this guy. So it was totally malicious. So the guy ended up winning his lawsuit for them. Someone said, don't buy the book. Don't buy the book. I don't have a deep desire to, and they said some people are on the record. I don't know how many people they even have. If there's a lot of folks that went on the record to even say all this stuff. So there's a lot of people talking, flapping their jaws, who again, don't have a lot to lose by being honest now. And I just feel they would, I just feel like they owed it to us. They owed it to other fellow Americans to be honest about the condition of the president of the United States. And Biden, who's had issues even prior to when he ran in 2020, owed it more to not just the people of America, but also the Democrat Party itself, to not put himself in that position, to put the party in that position to be in an unwinnable position. He owed it to the next generation. And I understand being president has always been on his bucket list, and he's wanted that for a very long time, but not everybody gets what they want. But he obviously did, but he should have just let it go after the 4 years. He should have just let it go after the 4 years. Anyway, Anyway, let's move on. So Donald Trump was in the Oval Office today, and he's been a busy guy. He was just like in the Middle East like 2 seconds ago. Like, you know, he's the president. So the South African president came to the White House, and there was some stuff that was shown about the treatment of white farmers. Now we decided to take in some refugees from South Africa, and there have been some folks upset about it. Now that there have been folks very happy to take in other people claiming falsely refugee status from all over the world. Our border's been open. They have fought to keep, you know, protective status for, you know, folks that Biden said could come in with a stroke of a pen or auto pen. Who knows? That might have been just actually signed by him, but I just can't recall. So they're very happy to bring in certain people, but we just brought in like a couple of people from South Africa, and folks didn't seem to be too happy about that. So Trump just had some savage moments in the White House today, you know, so he decided to show some footage, and the media is really upset about this and is basically trying to say it's a conspiracy theory about some of the treatment of like the white farmers and genocidal type of language that people are using in South Africa. So let's start off with this clip.
Turn the lights down. Turn the lights down and just put this on. It's right behind you.
Let's have movie time.
People are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. South Africa occupy land. That's who we are. So whatever you want to do, we can withdraw my membership from this useless parliament. Yes, honorable member. Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act. Shoot, kill, come on, sir. Kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer. The man of DJ is PE is a white man. So these people really want to hit them hard. Go after a white man. They feel a terrible pain because they attack a white man. Not because Bashar and Suni will not be touched. They will be touched, no one. But we're starting with this whiteness. We're cutting the throat of whiteness. It's like that. Shoot, kill, no one stop. Kill the brewer, the farmer. Kill the brewer, the farmer.
Can you imagine being the president there is just sitting through all of this while Trump just shows this to your face and the world stage just kind of watching it all happen?
I'm saying to you, was not caused for the killing of white people, at least for now. I can't guarantee the future.
Do you understand somebody watching that, especially as it gets shared on Twitter?
Like, what's running through this man's mind? Let me
Aren't driving, they're stopped there to pay respects to their family member who was killed.
So yeah. Trump's not playing games. There's more. There's more.
I
That we've
don't
just
know.
seen on the screen.
I don't know. Look, these are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. Horrible death. I don't know. To pick anyone, white South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws. And this is all, I mean, I'll give these to you. So when you say, what would I like to do? I don't know what to do. Look at this. White South African couple say that they were attacked violently. And,
Why don't you go and see for yourself if it is?
well, I could do that. Look, here's burial sites all over the place. These are all white farmers that are being buried. And he asks about a jet that was given. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You know, you are so bad. You're such a bad reporter. This is one after another. This family was wiped out. I'm just looking.
Can we get a report from President Trump?
What's your reaction to those videos,
President Trump.
Well, I think the videos are so. No. When you look at the videos, I mean, how does it get worse? And these are people that are officials, and they're saying that kill the white farmer and take their land. That's what. And I have other friends in South Africa. I have people that left. And one in particular that says you can't go there. He said they want to take your land. They take your land and they kill you.
Yeah. It was said, I think aid should not only be stopped but taken back if the receiving country has refugees or known human rights abuses. You know, I remember being like in middle school, high school, and my dad just saying, like, I don't understand why we give so much money to people around the world when they do such evil things, including indoctrinating people to just have hatred for America too. Like he always thought we should leverage our foreign aid. Like, I know some people like Matt Walsh are like, no foreign aid ever, period, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if we necessarily have to go that route, but we should definitely reconsider how much is going out for different abuses. But man, I wonder how much that would be kind of stopped in the courts. I mean, people there's people fighting in the courts when we try to enforce the Civil Rights Act you know, on college campuses and so on. So this such a I just wonder what's going through this man's head as Trump is pulling out article after article after article, dimming the lights to show it to their faces. Next time what was it? Was it in Germany where they had the laws? There was a 60 Minutes about the online people getting arrested for different stuff that they said online. I showed it to you guys. I'm trying to remember what country it was. For social. It was Germany. Like next time we have some folks from Germany come in the Oval Office, we're like, let's watch something from 60 Minutes. Like, how do you explain this? How do you explain your country doing this? And you know, you're supposed to be standing up for certain Western values, and you're arresting people for what they say on the internet. You know, I'm just saying every time someone comes to the Oval Office, there should be a shaming session. But I don't know. These are kind of entertaining. I'm not gonna lie. There was another clip I wanted to show you guys.
I grew up in an area in South Africa that is a farmland area, Polokwane, and there is some issues up there. Obviously, my dad was a property developer as well as a part-time farmer, and some of these buddy farmers got killed. The farm is still going. My brothers run it. But it's a constant battle with farms they're trying to burn the farms down to chase you away. So it is a concern to try and make a living as a farmer. And at the end, without farmers, there's no food on the plate. So we need the farmers to produce the food.
Farming, right? He wouldn't even want to do what you're doing, right? They love farming. They don't want to leave. But it's a struggle.
Yeah, and food and fresh water is the most important thing in life. Without those two things, you can't survive.
How is the water there?
The water is great. Obviously, all the water comes out of the borehole, out of ground for us down there. But yeah, it is a battle to get the water out sometimes when all the equipment gets stolen all the time that you're trying to get the water out.
So does your family and your brother, do they feel safe on the farm?
They live behind electric fences, try and be at night safe. But it is constant whenever you leave that something could happen. And
There's nowhere to live.
Both of them has been attacked in their houses. My mom's been attacked in her house when she was 80. So it is difficult.
Can you imagine needing to live behind an electric fence because you are a farmer? Can you imagine that? And man, they probably did not expect to bring them along for this trip and them to snitch on them about how bad it is for his family and these farmers. So yeah, that's all the rage right now. So the media is flipping out, I guess, trying to downplay it and act like Trump is all conspiratorial or whatever. But you saw what they were saying and stuff on TV, man. You saw what they were saying. So, sometimes I have my complaints about President Trump, man. But sometimes sometimes he's savage in a good way. Sometimes he's savage in a good way. There's some good clips of Marco Rubio on Capitol Hill, but I don't have those together. But he was being asked a bunch of questions about different policies, like revoking different people's green cards and things like that, their temporary statuses. And he's just like, if you come here to act a fool, like, we are going to revoke your status, like, and we're gonna do more. You just had like I don't give a care, I don't give a rip, this is how it is. He seems a lot more I don't know, in his element, especially when you compare. I guess he's more seasoned now, but thinking about his campaign run in 2016 to where he is now and just how he can handle the media and how he handles like his former colleagues, it's just like worlds away. I was in I got to go to one of the Republican primary debates when they came to Detroit. I was working at the Michigan Republican Party at the time, but he there are moments where he had really good nights. They had a lot of debates, but there was one time where he just kind of broke down. Like, someone talked about, I think it was Chris Christie talked about how he's just kind of like a polished robot or something, and then he just got under his skin, and Rubio ended up like repeating the same thing he had said like seconds ago. So it looked like he glitched and malfunctioned. So, I think he's just come a really long way. And maybe I'll have to look at some of those clips tomorrow. So another thing I want to look at, Charlie Kirk went to Cambridge, and I wanted to look at this clip. I haven't watched the whole thing, but this clip's going around. And I just think it's really interesting. Like at the very end, this is like 2 minutes, 8 seconds. And 18 seconds. And at the very end, he mentions that Charlie Kirk has a very childish sort of view on politics and good and evil. And I just think it's the other way around. And so I'll let you guys see this clip, and I can dive into more why I think that.
Let me ask you, in the conflict of Israel versus Hamas, who's the good guy? believe both Hamas and the Israeli government are evil, but I think also that there is no justification.
Are they equally?
There is no justification for the murder and mutilation of thousands of innocent people and children.
Well, let's
the futile.
Let's hear them out.
There is no justification, Mr. Kirk, for invading hospitals, for bombing innocent populations, and dragging out a war which is damaging Israel and the West.
You've made that point, but
well, it's not a point; it's a moral truth, isn't it?
Yeah. It was also a moral truth that the war started because 1,300 Jews were killed and 200 were taken hostage. And when you declare war on Israel, expect a firestorm in reaction. Let me finish. I let you talk. Israel, at its holiest day of the calendar year, besides Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, Samat Torah, the 50-year anniversary of the Six-Day War. On Shabbat, Hamas invaded Israel, deciding to go recklessly to music concerts, to homes, to kibbutzes, and taking 200 plus hostages. They knew what they were doing. In one of the most cloistered urban environments on the planet, 2 million people live in a place where it's impossible to wage war. Impossible. Where they wear civilian clothing, they violate every tenet of the Geneva Convention, and the IDF, when they do something right, they get no credit. When they do life-saving surgeries of a Gazan child, they get no credit. When they drop leaflets, they get no credit. But when they happen to bomb a place where they are operating their military from, which we now know from third-party verified sources, hundreds of Hamas military operations are in mosques, schools, and hospitals. I'm sorry, the country where they were living in relative peace on October 6th, that all of a sudden we had a war and Hamas started the war. And I don't see people that were really upset about the 2 million Germans that were killed in World War II, civilians. A tragic truth of war is that civilians die. I don't like it and you don't like it. And they brought it upon themselves. The only operation and entity to blame is the leadership of Hamas, not the Israeli government, for fighting this defensive war after they were invaded. There is a good guy and there is a bad guy. I honestly...
Isn't that the morality of a child?
Well, hold on. It's interesting you say that, because a child who knows that Israel is the good guy and Hamas is bad has a lot more wisdom than a student like yourself at Cambridge University.
That's I guess a decent comeback to his line there. Someone said watch him squirm and not listen to anything Charlie was saying. So his response of that's the morality of a child, they're good guys, they're bad guys, when he earlier said, you know, you're murdering, you're doing this, all this stuff, and I'm speaking the moral truth. And murder is bad, obviously, but I'm thinking about some of this stuff because I watched all those clips with like Dave Smith, the comedian who's friends with Joe Rogan. He talks a lot about Israel and Gaza and the war, and he went on a rant about like morality isn't change, and I'm the one who's speaking moral truths. And I find a lot of his commentary to be not moral and also childish. But murder is a legal term, and you can also look at it in a moral term as well. But there's certain parameters, if you're looking at an illegal term, that you have to hit in order for it to qualify as murder, like premeditation and your intent and the mens rea, whether you purposely did it, you know, is it first degree, second degree manslaughter? There's different degrees, different things that you consider if it's going to qualify as murder. If you're going to look at it from like a moral standpoint, and I don't know where this kid gets his moral foundation. If you're not a Christian, you don't really believe in objective morality anyway, and it's all subjective. You say something is bad, I say something is bad, and we know it's all a matter of perspective. And even if we agreed upon something, that's our shared collective agreeing upon that. And someone else's like society could agree or disagree on what we've come together and decided. And maybe we're living on a more advanced scale of what we deem to be our morality, and someone else is living in a more backwards view of their scale of reality. And it's all kind of subjective. But if you're looking at it from, you know, an objective sort of view on what, you know, qualifies as murder, we would say it's an unjustified killing, and I would say deliberate too. And you know, we're all made in the image of God, and the shedding of innocent blood is a terrible thing. but not taking someone's life isn't necessarily murder. The Bible talks about, it's just, war for one. There's wars in the Bible. There's commanded wars. Capital punishment is justified in the Bible, commissioned, and we're talking pre-Mosaic law. That we're talking about Genesis. Shedding innocent blood. You got to take the punishment too. So just simply taking someone's life doesn't automatically mean that you have murdered someone. So if you're going to say that civilians dying, like if you believe that Israel is deliberately killing all these people indiscriminately, then yes, that would be murder, I would say. But I think the evidence is contrary to that. They warn people, they do phone calls and texts and leaflet drops. They tried evacuating people. And if they wanted to kill more people would be dead. But Coleman Hughes went on Joe Rogan's show and he talked about the fact that Hamas has integrated themselves, and Charlie Kirk touched on it, so well into the infrastructure, where they hide in mosques and hospitals, and they have these terror tunnels, and they'll shoot off rockets in these areas, and the rockets don't always land back in Israel. They'll fall back and hit their own people. And they take things like pipes that are meant for water and they'll convert them into rockets to go kill more people. They've taken money that should have been used on foreign aid and building infrastructure for their people, and they spend it on terror tunnels and enriching their leaders in another country. Or the foreign aid that comes in for food and other supplies, they steal it. And then they sell it back to the people. So when people say they want free, Gaza to be free, Palestinians to be free, I want them to be free from Hamas. I want Hamas to be defeated. In their charter, though, they want to kill Jews. They're ideologically driven for that outcome. They see Israel as colonizers. They don't want them there on that land. They don't want a two-state solution. So you have a group who is fighting a defensive war, going and mutilating, hacking, and murdering all this stuff. That's what was done to Israel. This is a response to them. And Coleman Hughes, he pointed out, like, we could say that Israel should stop because they don't have a clean shot. But what would be, can we allow for Hamas to basically pull all the stunts that they did to protect themselves and say that's how you can win a war? That you should be able to go to a music concert, kill all those people, go to house, killing grandmas and kidnapping children and women and all these folks, do all that stuff, and you can get away with it if you hide amongst the population in terror tunnels, not caring about how many of your own people are killed, and we'll just say they don't have a clean shot, therefore we surrender, and therefore you guys get to stay in power. Can Israel afford to reward that? I don't think they can, because the leaders have said over and over again they are just waiting for another opportunity to commit another October the 7th. It's a matter of, are you going to fight them today or lose your kids tomorrow? That's what it is for them. And there's a lot of people who are talking about what's going on, and they're not even like raising support for the few people who are speaking out and starting to protest against Hamas. There are people speaking out right now, and they are so brave to do it because their lives are on the line. They're on the line. I think Israel is like, they've swapped so many like prisoners. I wouldn't want to release a prisoner unless there was a bomb in their head. Like, yeah. I'll just, gosh, maybe that's just me, but they released Yahya Sinwar, who's the mastermind of October the 7th years ago. And they also did surgery for him. He had some, something with his brain. I don't know if it was cancer in his brain or something, but they did surgery for him or whatever. But they released him in a prisoner swap, and he went on to commit October the 7th. So, they're in a bad spot. And really they have a better urban ratio to militant to a civilian than we have in urban warfare in other countries fighting these sorts of battles. So it's you do lose civilians in warfare, but to say that Charlie Kirk has the morality of a child because he's looking at it like bad guys, good guys, when you're like, but I'm the one with speaking about morality and ignoring all the other factors that Charlie brought up. That's childish. That's ignorant. That's ignorant. Someone said Israel is committing genocide on the Palestinians. Can you define what that is, please? Under like international law, and explain how so they're doing it. They're not committing a genocide. If they wanted to, they could have by now. If they wanted to, they could have by now. So they certainly could have. But they're not. If they wanted more people dead, they could. They absolutely could if they wanted to. They would not have to take all the steps that they have taken to try to limit limit casualties. And if the same thing had happened to the United States of America, I just think we'd have a higher body count. If something equivalent on the scale of October the 7th happened to the United States, and we would not take any lectures from anybody about how we would go about the war. Someone said, I see that there's a new comment, but there's not one explaining the actual definition of genocide and how Israel's committing it. So can you answer that question before you go on to another accusation? Again, war is a terrible thing. War is a terrible thing. And Hamas designed their infiltration of the infrastructure, schools, hospitals, mosques, etc., the terror tunnels, in order to hide themselves behind babies, behind grandmothers, behind civilians. They had civilians watch the hostages. They did these things so when their civilians died, people could complain about it. People like Dave Smith and so on. So they could get on TV, get on the news, etc., and hammer Israel to break their resolve so they would stop. So they can get away and regroup and commit another October the 7th. Because they want to kill the Jews. They're ideologically driven to do that. Because that's in their charter. That's really their religion. Islam is not kind to non-Muslims, man. And once Israel is off the map, don't you think they're not coming for everybody else? If you're into that book, anyway. It's just the reality of the situation. You don't have to accept it or like it, but I don't want this war to go on. But you could always call for Hamas to lay down their arms and do what's right for their people. That's always an option. That's always an option. But it's again, I just think it's interesting that he called Charlie Kirk childish without taking into consideration all the other factors that Charlie laid out in that little clip. Still not seeing anyone try to justify their comments about the genocide thing. Anyway, that's the show for today. That's the show for today. You guys can go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website. Check out different articles and videos, etc., including an article I guess, about this topic that I laid out. It's specifically about Dave Smith and some comments that he made, but it's called The Moral Idiocy of Dave Smith's Israel Takes. So you guys can check out that article on the website, because he makes a lot of the same arguments, and I have a lot of clips and quotes from him and other things, and I just break it down. And the interesting about Dave Smith, though, he said that if someone had committed stuff against his children, there was no level to evil which he would not rise up to, enact revenge, or he said there's no level of evil that he wouldn't stoop to. So I think Israel's taking a lot of great lengths to try to minimize civilian harm, but if you don't see it, you don't see it. You don't see it, you don't see it. Anyway, you guys can check out that article. You guys can check out different merch and other things that I have on my website and so on. And if you're interested in any of my books, you guys can go to the website and there's a link that'll take you there. There's also a link in the description as well. God bless you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.